For your convenience.
I'd like to call the meeting to order with a silent reflection and a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now roll call check.
Mrs. Cynthia? Here. Mr. Diver?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Tinkin?
Here.
Mr. Vorbach?
Here.
Mayor Mechanico?
Here. Please read the Open Public Meetings Act statement.
Pursuant to the requirements of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed in the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website and here in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Coast-Star newspaper, and mailed to those requesting notice and providing payment in accordance with Borough policy.
No presentations at this time. We had the fire prevention poster contest award earlier. This point in the meeting, we have the first voice of the public. You may speak on any agenda item only. If you'd like to speak, just step forward and give your name and address. Ms. Jones.
John Tangeman, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I see one of the agenda items here is an ordinance to rezone certain properties. And I wanted to make a comment that I think that this ordinance should not be introduced. It's totally unnecessary. If the property owner wants to develop their property, they submit a plan, and if it's not in requirements, they come before the zoning board of adjustment and they make an application to develop their property. It's completely unnecessary to have to rezone that area. Also, I'd like to know from the borough attorney, Mr. Raffetto, if you reviewed this ordinance, and is it consistent with the master plan?
I have reviewed the ordinance, and we have received comments from the planning board, and the planning board has recommended the ordinance. So based upon that, I presume
The
that...
planning board recommended the ordinance with, but is it consistent with the master plan, not what the planning board recommended?
I would indicate that I'm relying on the planning board, and the planning board has recommended the ordinance with the changes that was set forth in their recent letter of transmittal from their attorney.
Okay.
So I cannot say that I, myself, independently have reviewed this in connection with the
Okay,
master plan.
thank you. Well, once again, I would just ask that you vote not to introduce this ordinance, that is completely unnecessary. The applicants can seek relief through the Board of Adjustment. Thank you.
Sharon Gatto, Beverly Avenue. I also agree that you should vote not to introduce this ordinance tonight. And want to remind the council that we were practically promised another town-wide meeting before this even goes anywhere. There's lots of questions still. We still want to know about a traffic study, an environmental report, and just all the fine points of what this zoning ordinance might be. I also agree with John that I think this is unnecessary. It's already super busy over here, and I think that you just do an injustice to the people of the town. And perhaps it could be, just leave it the way it is. We also have so many empty commercial offices already in the area right now, and I don't understand why we need to build more. So, again, I'm just anxiously waiting this town-wide meeting where everybody's notified by mail like the last time. Because as you know, if you were at the meeting, most people do not want this. Most of the residents do not want this. Thank you.
Fred Manager, 61 Wickham Road, Springwood Heights. I think that it's a great idea to introduce this tonight. We have a piece of property that will meld quite nicely in the plan that the planning board's been thinking about between a busy road, a piece of retail commercial, not buildings, and a cluster housing, and then single-family homes. That's how a good plan works. It makes it so that we have use of this property. We do not have a traffic study. We're not going to have a traffic study because nobody's presented an application for B3 application. Once it becomes B3, then somebody has an application, and there'll be a traffic study. So getting ahead of ourselves by doing traffic and environmental things is not the place to go right here at this moment in time. This moment in time is really to just get the thing introduced, get the plan passed, and begin with wherever that application comes from for B3 use. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kathleen Crippen, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I just want to read this into the record once again, in case it comes up again. This is from a confidential memo dated June 20th, 2012, from Joe May as the borough engineer, addressed to the mayor and council. And his findings say, it is recommended that this area be considered for rezoning to possibly accommodate an entirely commercial use, a strictly residential use, or a mixed use. An analysis of potential highway access is also recommended in order to plan for as few driveways onto Route 71 as possible, with shared access between the lots and coverage. This could be accomplished through the construction of an interior connector road parallel to Route 71, which would also provide a means for efficient access to the rear portion of the lots and off-street parking areas. Based on the existing surrounding uses in this area, each of the rezoning considerations has merit. It was suggested that the council review these alternative uses and provide comment. Where is your comment on the alternative uses? If I have to get up at the public hearing and ask each and every one of you in a row, what do you feel about making it all residential? What do you feel about making it mixed use? I damn well will, and you know it. You are doing a disservice to the people that now have houses up there by not considering mixed use. If somebody up there now in a house decides they're going to tear the house down and rebuild it, they have to come before the Board of Adjustment to get a variance to keep their residential use in place. Now, B2, B3, I don't know, it's already B2. Why you have to rezone it? You're only rezoning it for one person. You have the two largest landowners and their real estate agent are the only people that support this plan. Everybody else is making a stink about it. And borough attorney, with all due respect, I was at that planning board meeting and I don't remember the words master plan even came up. They did not review it. That's going to have to be reviewed because I don't know whether you know it or not, but if you make a zoning change, you're not the final word on it. It has to go before Monmouth County Planning Board to be approved. So imagine Monmouth County Planning Board, that meeting, when all the people that are against this show up and show all holes in this procedure going forward. It's going to make everybody look less than they were behind in the store. So I would also want to see this tabled for a little more in-depth discussion. And I want to say, I want to know what Mr. Tinkin thinks. Should that be all residential? I want to know what Mrs. Cynthia thinks. Should it be mixed use? I want to know what everybody here thinks as per the engineer's recommendations. And he did recommend a traffic study at this point. So, be that as it may, I know what you're trying to do. Let's put it through and let the applicant pay for the traffic study. You know, I don't know where you're going to come up with the money for it. I know it's a balancing act. If the town does it, the town pays for it. But I think you have enough irate taxpayers that came to that meeting on March 11th, and that should tell you that they might support the traffic study. Thank you.
No one else like to speak?
Hello.
I'm Patricia Durkin-Wicknell. I live at 2015 Highway 71. I am direct affected by the change that they're talking about. And I just got here, so I didn't hear the other comments, but I'm just here to say that I am in favor of the change for the reasons that I stated at the earlier meeting. One, that a commercial zoning would create a 20-foot buffer for me rather than a 10 for residential. That a commercial change of zoning for me, who plans to stay here for the foreseeable future, means that without residential homes put in, a commercial venture to me means 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Less traffic, less activity, not an in and out, not 3 cars per household with visitors in the summer. To me, I think commercial is less traffic, not more. And as I said, I'm more directly affected by it. I own 2 parcels of property. I've been a taxpayer for 18 years in this town. I pay an enormous amount of tax in this town. So if anybody has the right to complain, it's me, and I'm not. And I have my garden in, and I'm going to live my life. I'm going to have a great little place there, but I prefer having a commercial zoning next to me rather than, as a lot of people in the area that are directly affected by it do. So that's my statement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Fred Manger, 61 Wickham Road, but now I want to represent Wickham Manor, which has a boundary of in excess of 1,000 feet on this property. Along with properties actually to the west of us, to the east of us. We've looked at some of the planning that's come through, and it's often had homes that were 10 feet off our line. But because this would be B3, it would make it so that the ordinance for a boundary, a buffer boundary would be in there of 20 feet. Plus, then there's a 20-foot setback from whatever they're building in there to the buffer zone. So it's basically a 40-foot space, which is a lot bigger than 10 feet. To us, the whole concept of the, thank you for reading the piece in about the engineer's report. I think one piece of the engineer's report is excellent, is having the road, an accessory road that travels along 71 through these pieces of property as part of what's envisioned in this B3 zone. And having it so that someone can go off of the 71, get inside there, they can go and park and go to wherever the building is, a retail shop that they're going to go to. They want to park and take their time and be away from the traffic on 71. It's an excellent idea. I think the engineer did a very good job with that thinking. It would also make such a whole piece, all 3 big properties would be a contiguous thing. And we're looking forward to being able to walk over there and go to whatever retail stores happen to be available and convenient for us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
John Lewis, 574 Prospect Avenue. In my career, have dealt with a lot of construction in Hoboken. And one of the things that I think the problem here is that nobody knows what it is going to go in there. You have 3 different property owners here. This lady says she's going to live here, have a garden. The lady on the corner with the bank owns a couple of lots. And once you change this, anything could be put in there. If these people want this, I'm not against it being commercial, but I would like to see, if it's going to be something pretty, I mean, what I envision, when I see Lahaska, Pennsylvania, and nice places. But if you just do this, it's rezoned. This lady doesn't rezone her, doesn't change her property. The people next to her decide to put in whatever they want. And then the people on the other side do the same thing.
There's no planning, right?
There's no plan.
Planning board.
If you want the people behind it, this is all I'm saying. If you want to pass this and you want the people behind it, I would walk in as a representative of my fire department and look at an 8-foot table with the construction on it, and you knew what you were getting. And I don't say to do that. You don't have to build a model, but there should at least be a drawing of this is what we envision there, and when you change the zoning, that's what has to go there. And make sure that later on, you don't regret a decision you might make to change this, and have people put in things later on that you say, well, I wish they weren't there. That's it.
Yes, Ed.
Ed McGurk, 1208 Blair Road. I want to know what this is going to cost me as a taxpayer. I believe Mr. Martone got up at that meeting and said it wasn't going to cost us anything. Now, I don't know why, if somebody wants to do something, that they don't file to change the plan. You know, show us what you're going to do. And as far as traffic is concerned, but you got 71, and I live on a Lair Road, and I know what traffic is like on a Lair Road. And it's, you know, it's gonna cause a lot of confusion. And again, I recall one time, somebody for planning little condos on Warren Avenue. And Ray Walker came in, he was the fire code official. And he said, oh no, you can't do that because we need access. So it's got to be reviewed by the fire department if anybody's going to do anything. I don't want this to cost myself and the taxpayers in this town any money. If somebody wants to make money, put up or shut up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Anyone else have an agenda item they'd like to speak on? No? Seeing no hands, need a motion to close the first voice of the public?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, just it should be noted that we passed over item number 3, approving the agenda.
Yes. Amended agenda. I'm sorry, state that again, Jeff?
Item number 3, approving the agenda.
Approve the agenda. We didn't take a vote to approve the agenda.
We approved it. I don't think anybody objected. There were no objections. No objections to it.
No, boy.
I would say just go ahead and do it anyway.
Need a motion. I
One
apologize.
less vote.
Need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions on the agenda? Roll call.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Discussion items not at this time. We have the council reports and the mayor's report. I just have,
Mayor, just on the discussion item, I had listed that as an agenda item, anticipating that we would be in a position to either adopt an amendment or adopt the budget. The state, we have not concluded the review at that level, so we're not in a position to take any action at this time.
so,
As soon as possible. At this point, we're hoping our next meeting that we'll have.
so you have the information from the state.
Yeah, we're waiting for the information from the state.
All right, thank you. I just have a letter I'd like to read from the Spring Lake Heights Brownie Troop 29. They're asking for our help to fulfill one of their requirements for bridging from the Brownie Troop to the Girl Scout Troop. They had 3 requirements. The first was the first key, discovery. They learned about family values and what they meant. The second key was about teamwork and healthy living. And the final key is to take action. This is where they need our help from the council. They would like us to fix or repair the swings at Alair Road Park and the community center. They're concerned that small children may get hurt on them because they're rusted and need repair. Jim. So I would like to ask Mr. Schuler if he would inspect the swing sets and try and get something done that as soon as possible, Jim?
Yes.
And I congratulate Brownie Troop 29. They all have their name on here. I met all the girls. I went to their ceremony, and they were very proud. I was very proud of them, what they did. That's it for my report. Mr. Tipton.
There will be rec sign-ups tomorrow, 6 to 8, right here, and then also the countywide yard sale is Saturday. Get your applications in by June 13th.
Thank you. Mr. Borbeck.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Cynthia.
Just the, maybe Pat could comment on this, but I believe last week there was notification that the federal government has given us $2.4 million for RecPon. Is that correct, Pat?
It's in the paper.
Eileen? It's not just Spring Lake Heights. It's also Seagirt, the towns that border RecPon, as far as to determine what's going on there with the erosion. That's good.
Thank you. Ms. King.
I have a letter here that was written from one of our residents. Apparently on June the 5th, he was involved in a minor accident. I can't read the letter because part of it is chopped off, but it occurred in the parking lot of the post office. And he just wanted to commend Officer Tom Kenny, who responded, and say what a professional, polite, and quick to assess the scene and his constructive suggestions to rectify the situation. Apparently there was some kind of communication gap between the parties when this occurred, but he said that he highly commended Patrolman Kenny and all the people who work for Spring Lake Heights Police Department, and that he is glad that he's in good hands and proud to be a resident of Spring Lake Heights and to be represented by fine people in the police department. And I just wanted to thank Mr. Michael Ciricella for his remarks. Also, I wanted to report that during the month of May, we had 719 motor vehicle stops. And a lot of this is due to the new equipment that we have in our department. Out of those stops, 261 were able to be utilized on our e-ticketing machine, which we've just gotten a few weeks ago. So they're definitely out there doing their job and using the equipment that we've purchased. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Mr. Dever.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Schuler.
The only thing I have to say is the Public Works have been very busy cleaning the storm drains in town, and unfortunately, even with a clean draw, we couldn't keep up with the water
I can
coming.
keep up with that board today.
So,
No. Thank you very much. We have the police department report, municipal court report, and the correspondence from John Lane. Any questions on those? New business. This is the ordinance introduction for the B3 zoning. Before we begin, I don't know if anyone, out of respect to Ms. Crippen, if anyone would like to answer a question she posed to us.
I'd like to actually comment on some of the statements that were made from the audience. And I'm mindful of the comments that were made about the planning board and the master plan. So the letter that the council has received from Mr. McGill, attorney on behalf of the Spring Lake Heights Planning Board, did make certain recommendations as to the ordinance. There was not in his written letter any reference to whether the proposed ordinance is consistent with the master plan. I would like to see that. So if council moves forward this evening to introduce the ordinance, I would recommend that you send this back to the planning board and get a written consistency report from the planning board so that you have that as a matter of your record. Because under the municipal land use law, You are allowed to adopt an ordinance that is either in whole or in part inconsistent with the master plan, but there are heightened requirements. It has to be by an affirmative vote of a majority of the full authorized membership of the governing body, and you have to set forth your reasons in a resolution as to why you're adopting an ordinance that is inconsistent with the master plan. Right now, the letter that we have doesn't specifically reference the master plan and whether the ordinance is consistent either in whole or in part with the master plan. It may very well be, but I'd like to have that in writing from the planning board. So I'm recommending that if you do introduce the ordinance tonight, that it go back to the planning board, that we get a written consistency report so we have confirmation as to whether this in whole or in part is consistent with the master plan, and then you can proceed accordingly at the time of second reading and final hearing.
Okay, well, being as you said that, Fred, I would recommend to the council that we do table it.
That doesn't mean you have to table
I
it.
would second
That's
that.
a policy call on your part.
Okay, I would recommend that, so we can get the,
You don't have to have that before you introduce it. I just want to make that clear. You can introduce the ordinance, and then in between first reading and second reading, you can refer it to the planning board and get a consistency report. You don't have to table it for that reason.
I'll make that motion to table it.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I have a problem that we haven't notified the public as far as, I mean, the people that are in the know, they've showed up, but we haven't notified the general public that we are doing this, and maybe Coast Guard could print something up to let people know.
Well, once you have the public hearing, they have to be notified.
But I'm just talking about the introduction. And this meeting should be, an introduction should also be, that's my opinion.
okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to obviously speak in favor of tabling this. I strongly agree with Mr. Ruffetto's recommendation as far as getting a consistency report from the planning board with respect to the master plan. I also, there are some informational issues that I think some of my fellows on the council would like to hear about. You know, the other thing is, you know, I don't have a position on this in the sense that, you know, I think, oh, it should be all business or all residential or whatever. But I do have this position, and that is that when we had that meeting back in March, I wanted more public input and more public meetings.
Which you would get.
Because I think the more input we have, the better job of governing we can do. I mean, we're the voice of the people in a sense, so I think it's wise to table this.
Yeah.
And schedule meetings, open public meetings for this too.
Well, when you introduce it, you have to have an open public.
I have one question. Paragraph F should come off completely. Do we take that out now?
Yes, what I had discussed with Mr. Delaney and Mr. Schuler's aware as well, is that given the fact that the planning board in the letter from Mr. McGill that I referenced earlier specifically requested that you consider the elimination of the liquor store, hardware store, garden supply, and outdoor dining uses from the ordinance. They were originally in the original version. Specifically relating to outdoor dining, if you're going to get rid of that, you no longer need an entire section of this ordinance, which is section F, and it's listed on pages 4 and 5 of what's in your bound packets. That entire section would come out because those were outdoor dining design standards that would no longer be necessary.
Good.
Well, I would just like to comment on the fact that just because an application has not been filed does not mean that the property owner can't do on their own accord a traffic study. And while the town should do one on their own behalf, the property owner, if they really want this application to go forward, should do a due diligence to try and
They have to do it.
win us over. And have I completely disagree with Patricia as far as, you know, you have commercial properties there, and all of us are going to be turning into that property one day, once a day, twice a day. Whereas right now, you only have a handful of residents that come in and out of that property. And so you're going to have a much higher volume of traffic going in and out because it's going to be retail. We're talking outdoor dining. We're talking, it's going to be
restricted. The outdoor dining's been stricken.
Right, but I'm just saying, this is going to be retail. It's going to be open on Saturdays and Sundays. It's going to be open on Saturdays and Sundays. You're going to have
So is
traffic
Christine
there.
Keegan.
I mean, unless you've seen a plan we haven't seen. I mean, we don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, we're not debating the
Right,
residents.
well, I'm making,
Just make your comments.
so, for somebody to make the statement that it's gonna be less traffic, commercial than residential, I completely disagree with. And I just wanna point out that hands down, the public on March 11th was completely against it. And,
Yeah, I just want to say that living on this end of town, as Butch and I do, he and I have been kicking this thing around for a very, very long time because we live right there in the proximity of it. The meeting that we had for the public was good. We did have a lot of response. But the majority of the people that objected to that lived on the southern end of town. And they did not live in the immediate vicinity of where this is going to take place. You could hash this over a million times as to which is the best way to go. Keep it the way it is, go to a B2, go to a B3. But I think one of the things, and I have mentioned this to Joe May a while back, I think one of the things that we need to do, if we're going to have any kind of another public session, is we need a very large easel that we can construct a drawing and show the people exactly what is being done. The other thing that I think we need to do is there is all kinds of opinions, even right up here on the dais, as to what is the procedure of how this takes place. We need to have from the planning board so that the residents understand that you don't put the cart before the horse. And people do have to make an application. These people have made applications, they have submitted drawings, they have withdrawn their drawings. But also you do need to have introductions so that you can go into the in-depth procedure of getting the information that has been brought up here tonight, such as additional traffic studies and things like that, which, as I understand from the planning board, they have to do, irregardless of what the person does that owns that property. They still have to do all these studies. So I really think there is information that we need to gather and we need to put forward so that everyone, before they cast a vote, understands exactly what the procedures are. And I have no problem, like I said, with people coming out to voice their opinion from all over the town. But I think the biggest concern is the people that live right in that vicinity. And those are the people that are going to be affected. The traffic there on Highway 71 is absolutely dead stop on the weekends. Same thing with Lair Road. But I also don't want to see Section 8 housing in there. I don't want to see anything low income. I don't want to see something there that is going to cause an additional problem. And my concern with housing is that if housing is allowed to go in the back, and I'm not saying that other residents, such as Pat and her husband, are going to run out and sell their property. But as time goes on and years go on, and if that property is sold and we have residential housing back there starting, who's to say that they're not going to take a street and they're going to run it all the way down to Hampton Court and they're going to connect it. And then those people that live there are now going to have a through street, and now we're going to have another traffic problem on Pitney Drive. I think there's a lot of concepts here, and it's a very, very, very intricate situation. I don't know myself just yet which way I would want to see this go, but I do think that we have to get ourselves to a point to introduce this so that from there we can have the public meetings, we can have the process move forward and take place now and resolve itself. And I agree with Fred that we do need something from the planning board saying that this is within the master plan. And if it isn't, then we need to know why and why they're they're gonna do? Is there adjustments gonna be made? What's gonna take place? That's my position as of right now.
Well, in answer, I know Kat and I have had several discussions on this, and I think I've answered a lot of your question already on it. But I want to state why I have a concern about housing there. There's similar concerns to Sarah in the sense that I'm going to build a house on Route 71 today. What kind of a house am I going to build? Who am I going to be able to market that home to? It's not exactly the most desirable location to build a new home. If you have it behind businesses, that means that the children of those families have to come through those businesses to get to Route 71, which means and in fact, there is a plan submitted. They will be walking through a business parking lot to get to Route 71. I have safety concerns, I have fire concerns. The other concern I have is, okay, we're going to build a certain type of home. What is that going to do to the market value of the homes right in its adjacent area as a common? If a new house goes in there, for example, if houses on Pitney Drive or say Wickham Manor condos go for $385,000, houses on Pitney Drive go for $450,000, $500,000, depending upon the home. Parkview Terrace, Greenwood, they would all be subject to these comps. If you put up a new house and it sold for $250,000, you would affect the comps of those people. It would directly impact the value of real estate in that area. It would directly impact the value of homeowners in that area. That is a specific concern of mine. I also believe, in terms of discussion of Hampton Court and the 1,000-foot property line of Wickham Manor, I have a concern. I've been on the planning board for almost 7 years. When it comes to residential property, and Kat can attest to this too because it happened to me directly, there is no buffer in that 10 feet. There's no planted buffer. And it was tried once before. The town does not have the wherewithal to enforce it. I lost 18 feet of green trees, 70 and 80-foot trees on my property because my neighbor didn't like the conservation area that was put in that area. They have still to this day never replaced it. Now the other neighbor on the other side has destroyed it, has not replaced it. I had to replace it. I had to go and sue these people. It was ridiculous. But the fact of the matter is, as homeowners, and I'll tell you because this is exactly what was said to me, by my attorney, their attorney, and everybody else, it's their property. My concern is if you go in the northwest corner of this area that we're discussing, that's where Hampton Court is. If you put residences back there, the trees right now that are in that back corner, which are very viable, very, very protectable, and all the way down that fence, will be lost. They will be lost. I don't care what anybody tells you. You can march in here with everyone putting yellow ribbons on you. I'm telling you, they will be lost. I've seen it happen. It happened to me. That is a very big concern of mine. My other concern, in terms of the if you're doing a mixed use there of houses, what kind of houses? How do we handle the stormwater runoff? As Kat knows, that's a big issue of mine on the planning board. I ask it in every application. What are we doing about stormwater runoff? That runoff is far more easily managed in a business setting. It is far more easily managed. The more solid particulars you put on a piece of property, that's less area for stormwater runoff, which means more things going straight right into the sewer faster than if we had a parking lot. And I'm not saying let's put parking lots all over town. We're talking about this one specific area. And in fact, we did this in another area on the other side of town, on the corner of the golf course. If you know Park Avenue and Route 71, there was a building put in there that fit very nicely into the neighborhood. And for stormwater runoff, they actually put right under the parking lot, which is the same thing you can do here. If you're going to say, let's leave it as it is and do this piecemeal, each one of those properties are going to have to handle stormwater management independently. That could give you drainage basins, what they call retention basins, detention basins. We don't want that. There is a better way. Now, you may disagree with me, and that's fine. That's why we're here to discuss it. But I would ask that you consider all the aspects of it. not just one particular aspect. It is a complete view that you need to take in regard to not just one property at a time, but all properties there in unison, because they've always sort of been seen that way. I don't know why there was such a large portion left over from the development at Wickham Manor, but apparently there was. And I don't know what the maps were from that time. This is probably 40 or 50 years ago. But at the same time, to bring a housing element in there, and there is a plan on file right now that does that, I think it's detrimental. I have fire safety concerns, I have concerns about children's safety, and I really do have concerns about the trees that are back there. We will lose them. We will absolutely lose them. If you go back by Hampton Court, please take a ride. Drive into Hampton Court. Everybody sitting on this council should drive into Hampton Court, look at the trees that are right there buffering that property. They will be gone. That's a disservice to those people. It's a disservice to the people of Wickham Manor as well, and the people in the surrounding area, because we will drive their property value down. We should not do that. That's my opinion. I hope I've answered the question.
One other thing I just remembered that I wanted to mention. When we had that meeting and we invited all the public to that meeting, Fred Manger, who sits on the Board of Adjustment, got up towards the end of that discussion, and he made it very clear at that time, and I don't know how many people really understood it or even paid attention, but if we don't act and do something with this property
We won't control it.
very, very soon, we're not going to be able to control what these people want to do. And right now, they have submitted a plan. The plan does relate to both residential and commercial. And if we don't act pretty soon, you know, that could just slip right in there and we're not going to be able to do anything. And it conforms with every single stipulation that it has to conform with. Because these people have been trying to do something with this property going back years, and they don't want to wait. So if they decide to push this, we may end up having something there that none of us agree with. And as Fred pointed out at that meeting, we won't be able to control. And I was glad Fred brought that up, but I really don't think very many people paid attention to it. Because if they did, they would realize that this is one of the reasons why we want to go forward, why we want to at least introduce something so that we can start the process. Because I don't know how long these property owners are going to just sit here and wait.
Can I comment? All right. First of all, I want to point out that you're saying that there's a plan already submitted, there's an application made to the planning board?
Yep.
Then, my understanding is that we cannot vote to change the ordinance, to change the zoning, if there's an application submitted.
For that parcel.
For that parcel.
For that
You
parcel.
can, but it won't be
They would be great.
effective against that particular property owner under the time of application. It used to be the time of decision rule, meaning basically that the town could change the zoning even if there was an application pending before a board up until the time that that board made a final determination. The legislature changed that a couple of years ago, and now it's considered the time of application. And so you're basically stopped once the applicant makes an application and has a complete an application that's been deemed complete from changing the zoning that will affect that particular application. You can still change the zoning, but it won't be effective against that particular application.
And I just want to point out that it's completely false that there was more South End people at the March 11th meeting. There's Sharon, there was Kat. Kat spoke on behalf of Rita Murphy. There's Joe Thompson. There are 3 people that lived on Hampton Court that's right in the same area. The Brendels were there. There was a woman north of Vallejo that lived north of Vallejo, said that she was concerned it's already too busy with her kids crossing the street. So, and I also want to point out that we have never heard from the property owner. We have never heard, the property owner has never come before us and said, this is what we'd like to do. It's never, I mean, why would not the property owner, if you wanted to change the zoning of your property, would you not be here to speak to the council and let them know what your intentions were? You know, and I think something needs to be done there. But I would like to know, if I'm going to vote to change, I would like to know what it is. I would like to have a traffic study.
I think in some respect, those comments put the cart before the horse. In fact, the owner of that property came before the planning board. That's where they go. There isn't a single process for an owner of a property to come in here and discuss what they're going to put there. This is not the planning board. This is the council. It is the council's role to provide the ordinance by which the planning board must operate in the end. That is the actual process. I'm sorry, but you have this wrong. And the bottom line is, again, we can sit here and say, you know, what this or that is, or, you know, we want to see a plan. That's not the process, and everyone knows that. It is not the process.
It
is not the process.
You can't show us a plan of what you would like to present to
The process is the
application.
ordinance.
Planning.
If you read the ordinance, to yourself, you would see that there are design criteria in the ordinance.
This ordinance is a copy of our zone. It's all it is copy, it's verbatim, the zoning.
I can't help if you don't read it.
I think that, do we
That's
have a
all it
motion
is.
before it? I think just to call the vote.
For table.
Yeah, it's a table, yeah, yeah.
To
right,
table.
Vote on that. yeah.
Call the question.
Call the question. Thank you very much. Thank
I'll second that.
you. Any other questions?
When we
Chris?
talk about tabling, council, are you still gonna go back and get this letter that you spoke
Well,
about? Is that part of
it
the
would be,
tabling?
it would be the council actually referring this back to the planning board and requesting clarification and confirmation as to whether this ordinance is consistent in whole or in part with the master
I
plan.
just wanted us to define what tabling means in this context.
That includes that, right?
Yes, I think the motion to table includes that, and
Excellent.
what's so important about that is it's as a matter of law, in order for you to
Yes.
adopt this, you need to know whether you need to also be adopting a resolution setting forth your reasons for why you're deviating from the master plan. And unless you have clarification as to whether this is consistent with the master plan, you don't know whether you need to do that resolution or not. So, we don't have anything in writing that says that, and I'm just looking to have that as a matter of your record. So once we get that from the planning board,
I
I think
agree.
you're all set from the legal perspective that way.
Call the vote.
Here we go.
Roll call, Jake.
This is on the motion to table. Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes?
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion of this that we should talk about as far as another town-wide meeting?
Well, I think we have to wait for it to come up. We have to wait for it to come back from the planning board. I mean, we just had another meeting tonight.
You're right, okay.
And that, along with that vote, then you're directing Mr. Delaney to send a letter to the planning board requesting that they review this and clarify whether this is consistent with the master plan. And to reply to the council respectfully in writing with their position on that.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, new business. We have a few resolutions. Resolution 2013-74 is the approval of an alcohol beverage control license.
Yes, Mayor, and actually, these two resolutions obviously are both related to the alcoholic beverage control licenses. We have included in the packet the information from the chief of police regarding his review of the activities during the last year. I have separated the golf club resolution out as there's a conflict for one member of council.
All right, this is Resolution R 2013-74. Need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any questions? A roll call, please.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Abstain.
Mr. Diver?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin?
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2013-75. This is for the renewal of another alcohol beverage control license.
Make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any questions? A roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia?
Yes?
Mr. Diver?
Abstain.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Borbaugh.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2013-77, the consent agenda items. Need a motion and a second.
You may,
No, you
you,
skipped
Oh,
over.
right, you skipped them
76.
again.
76.
Tax refund.
Yes.
I knew I skipped it. R 2013-76, authorizing tax refunds.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? A roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia,
Yes.
Mr. Diver,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Borbaugh.
Yes.
Thank you. Consent agenda, R 2013-77.
Make the motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any questions on the consent? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia,
Yes.
Mr. Diver,
Abstain.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Borbaugh.
Yes.
Thank you. Financial resolution, need a motion to move the
I'll
bills
make
to
that
the
motion.
finance committee. A second.
I'll second it.
Roll call, any questions, I'm sorry. A roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia,
Yes.
Mr. Diver,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Borbaugh.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R 2013-78, approving the payment on the claims for June 7th, 2013 bill list.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any questions? Roll call, Jay.
Mrs. Cynthia,
Yes.
Mr. Diver,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Tinkin,
Yes.
Mr. Borbaugh.
Yes.
At this time of meeting, we have the set invoice of the public. We may speak on any item you desire. Just step forward, give your name and address. Yes.
Tricia Durkin-Wickle, once again, I'm just responding to your tabled ordinance. And I'd just like to say that I do disagree with you, even though you disagree with me on that point. And my citing was the Christine Heating Building, which is a commercial space on a commercial property on Route 71, as is my house on a commercial property. Doesn't seem to have a lot of traffic going in there. Hoffman's has a lot of traffic going in. That's the type of business that causes that kind of traffic. Offices do not. So that's my feeling, and I don't think anybody here is going to be driving through that corridor if it's an office building. And I also want to thank Sarah King and Rich Diver for your comments, because I think they're absolutely right. It does affect our property values. It certainly affects my property value, and I'm paying a lot of taxes in this town. And point two is that we're also getting a lot older. So what if I came in right after this person and decided that I was going to use my land for exactly what it's zoned for? I'll be putting houses in there too. And I'll be standing here in front of you, just like the other owner is, and doing the exact same thing, adding more houses, more traffic, more possible Hampton Court or Alera Road traffic versus something very tasteful and very nice that's a commercial property on a commercial road such as Route 71 is. And if you look back on the history of Spring Lake Heights, it's always been a very commercial property. So I bought the house, it was an eyesore, I poured a ton of money into it, I pay a lot of taxes, I scrutinize my tenants to make sure they're good. I get involved in the community, and when I'm ready to go, I would like to be careful, like this other owner is, as to who's going to take over to it, like you all do for your properties. So, I live on Route 71, it should be a commercial property. That is my statement, and like I said, I'm not doing anything, but I could if things aren't done the right way, and I think that it should be zone B-free.
Are you also doing the Father's Day car show Sunday?
Yes, I am.
Alera
And the
Road
weather's
Park?
supposed to be great, and we'll see you there, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Pat.
Yes.
Yes, Cal?
Yes,
John Tangent, 564 Atlantic. Ms. King made an assertion that, and I believe you're correct, in that if somebody built a house that sold for $250,000, that everybody else's values would go down. That's that. Okay, that's probably true. But I was just wondering if you could find out, maybe from the tax collector or the assessor, if you build a commercial development next to somebody's house, does that make the value of their house go up?
Depends on how you build it.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
and
So, I mean, so we
buffers that
shouldn't
go with
assume
it.
that if you build a house, the value's gonna go down. We don't know what's gonna happen if you build a commercial development next to it. Is that gonna increase their housing
To you,
values?
if I may,
Yes.
to your point, as I also pointed out, if you put residences in there, you will not control the buffers. There are no buffers to control.
Yes, I understand.
In the business zone, you can dictate what those buffers are. You can dictate what they will plant there. You can dictate the width of those buffers.
Right, well-
Yes, we do 20-foot buffers. Could we do 30?
Right,
Yes, we
but
probably
that's-
could.
I-
But that's to
what
your
you said
point.
before. No, my point is, I'm asking a question.
Yeah.
Could somebody find out through the tax assessor, if a commercial development is built, how is that gonna affect the rate, the properties next to it? We're assuming that if you build a building and it sells for a cheap price, that it's gonna go down, and you're correct, that's probably what would happen, but what would be the opposite?
Well, let me ask you the
That's what I'm
question then.
trying to ask.
If I built residences back there along the fence of Wickham Manor, and Wickham Manor were then exposed to Route 71, and you could see Wickham Manor from north to south on Route 71, do you not think that would affect their
Well, if you
values?
built residence, how would you see Wickham Manor?
You would see,
Because you
residents have
wouldn't have a buffer.
setbacks and they have, you know, they are separated, they're not on top of each other.
I don't know. I know that I went to the planning board when they debated the plan that the property owner had submitted, and that plan was originally a mixed-use plan. They were going to have commercial in front, they were going to have residents in the back, and that plan would have been approved had they simply taken out one of the residents in the back. Okay, but they want the big payoff on their property, and so now they've probably convinced you that you need to approve this, otherwise they're gonna build, Section 8 housing.
No one's
and other
convinced me
stuff.
of anything. The one thing I can tell you that I'm convinced of, and I've seen the new plan submitted, there is no sidewalk for a child to walk on to go from those residences to Route 71.
Well, can't-
I strongly object to that.
Well-
I think it's unsafe, it's unfair to the children that could live there, it's unfair to their parents,
Right, well-
and just because it conforms, John, doesn't make it good.
Okay, so
It's
they would
not
not have to
good.
go before the planning board with this plan that they have?
Yes, and right now that plan, I'm pretty sure would be a conforming plan. And if, say for example, and I'm on the planning board, so full disclosure. If we turn that plan down, they have the right to go into court. Once they go into court, we will have no say, because a judge can say this plan conforms, go ahead, we're stuck with it, we no longer have control of that. That, it's a question of cutting your nose to spite your face,
If the
John.
plan conforms, then it should be a good plan.
John.
Oh, beauty's in the eye of the
John,
beholder.
the problem is, John, that
Then they have
it's
the
a,
right to build that if it
John,
conforms.
yeah,
right.
but the problem is,
We
it's a
wanna
split,
change that.
split zone. It's just not feasible for that area, that split zone.
It's split zone.
It's just not workable. But it won't make anyone happy.
No.
Yeah, okay. All right, but could someone find out from the
Yes,
assessor, would
Jay.
the commercialization of the property make the value go up, or
Yes,
how
yes.
would it affect? it?
We will.
That's what-
Depends on how it's.
We-
Thank you.
Jay, could you find out from,
I'll speak with the assessor and get a feel for what the issue is.
Tom?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think Mr. Tangent had some valid points. And
Yeah.
honestly, we don't know what the values would be, whether it was residential or commercial. The key is how it is done.
But-
I think that anything that gets done there is going to improve the value of the, because I don't think it looks very well.
Right, you're right.
And so it's kind of like the nursing home that, and those townhomes that went in where the nursing home went, and it's very, very nice, very little traffic that has not negatively affected North End at all in 71. And that's something that I would like to see there, something like that, over 55.
Kat?
Sorry.
Kathleen Pritchett, 564 Atlantic Avenue. B2 zone, does that currently allow for retail?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yes, it does.
So B3, what is being added that's not,
It's what's being subtracted.
so what's being subtracted? Because the retail, I saw the liquor stores in that, but there's still light retail use though.
Light retail, it could be there.
Okay.
Could be there. Doesn't mean it's going to be there, but it could be there.
Okay, so it's not completely commercial. It's not.
Well, light retail is commercial.
So when I come in with my business plan for the knitting store, and I'm planning on a lot of foot traffic, plus I'm planning on being open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights, because if you know anything about knitters, they like to hang out at night and do their thing. So that would definitely increase traffic in and out of there. So I think that it's a little disingenuous to say, oh, if it's just commercial business, there won't be a lot of traffic because nights and weekends, nobody will be going in there. They, by God, better be going in there, because if it's retail, that's gonna be your high traffic times for people, is gonna be not evenings and weekends. So if you have retail in there, you're gonna get a lot of traffic, and maybe not to the level of Hoffman's, but, you know, you're gonna get something.
And just on that point, I did see one plan when I was back on the, and it was mixed use, it was a mixed use plan. And it was shops on the bottom, it was shops, and I'm not saying I didn't like it, I liked it, but it was gonna be a lot of traffic, and that was the question. Whether or not they had enough parking in the back, they were gonna do the parking in the back by where Wickham Manor was. And then there was gonna be 2 rows of commercial shops, outdoors dining, I mean, we've taken that off, but their intention was.
Having
There
lived
was
through
also
the
3
days,
stories.
yeah, having lived through the days of Eleanor Miller Candies, which I know a couple of you remember, you know, multiply that by however many retail fronts you might have going into a place, and you're gonna have like some busy weekends up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else like to speak?
Manager, 61 Wickham Road, and I'd like to just address the thought of having to go back to planning board. I think it's a great idea. One thing about that, it lets us have the ability to put the road idea, the whole idea about going back to planning board is, of course, is to make it as a notation that we were going to go and look at it as a B3 property, not a mixed-use property. So once that notation is recorded at the planning board level, then obviously that's also out there if you go into a court, that the town has been looking at this thing, and that thinking has been in the process. In that process, we could have, coming from the planning board, the idea of an access road across all 3 of those properties that are the major creases that are approaching 71. And also, the planning board could put in there that thinking of having a centralized stormwater management. I mean, those 2 things are the key to having a contiguous piece of something happening on those 3 properties, and we having control over it as a town. I was very happy to hear Mr. McGurk talk about taxes and what it would cost us. Retail space, by the way, is, speaking from my real estate activities, retail space covers or has probably the highest rateables. We have a town that needs some money, and having some nice quality retail space in there with an access road that comes off of 71 with a traffic problem, having some kind of thinking that incorporates stormwater management, having a parking lot that's between where the retail space would be off the access road, and behind it would be the parking lot, which would be against all of the property owners with a buffer, and you would have open space in there as the parking lot would be. You'd have your stormwater management. It's a real home run. Definitely home.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
I just want to make one comment. Councilwoman King said something about Mr. Manager's comments back on March 11th, and the fact that nobody really heard what he said. The issue of losing control is, the town has control. We have a planning board. The reason why they have not done anything to develop this property over the years, even though they've had several plans and tried to do several different things, is because the planning board looks at the plan and there's variances and they shoot things down. So we do have control, and Attorney Kelly, Mr. Kelly got up, and he's been with this town for several years, and I believe he was on the planning board at one time, or worked for the planning board as an attorney. But he was very clear that these properties are too small. You can't, you said about putting a Starbucks in there.
Yes,
Yeah, and
Yes,
it's
you
just,
can.
yeah, and it's just not true.
Board of Adjustment.
The parking is not,
Board of
the
Adjustment.
space, the parking is not there for these little
That's
parcels.
not true.
So,
Well, that's her opinion, Rich. Okay.
It's not true.
It's Councilman Cindy's opinion.
It's not true.
Anything else, Betty? Okay. Anyone else? We're still in the voice of the public. Seeing no hands, need a motion to close it?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jay, did you ever finish, you know what?
I did not finish Thursday. As you came in this evening, I was busily working on that school meeting. I won't refer to it publicly, I refer to it privately. But we do not have those minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Need a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At 10 to